So I'm about to start An Ember in the Ashes. But I got a copy from the library, and I've never seen this version of it. Like, I don't know what version this is. There's a map on the... I love maps. Fantasy World should always have maps. Well, I mean, I don't have to, but I like them. Okay, let's see. 2015, printed in the United States. Yeah, it doesn't say, like, if it's a special, any kind of edition. It doesn't... Maybe this was... It doesn't say first edition either, so I don't know if the... I really don't know. I don't know. But I'm excited to read it. It is from first-person present point of view, which I think is a very hard point of view to do, so I'm really excited to see how that goes. So I'm very interested in that. Okay, I really want to like this book. I really want to like every book I read. I mean, who wants to read something they don't like? And I really, really wanted to like this one. I've been wanting to read it for a hot minute, so I was really hoping this would be the one. And I feel like it's not going to be the one. I'm sad. I'm only 6 pages in, though, so it could just be rubbing me the wrong way to begin with, because I'm unnecessarily picky. Okay, I just had to remind myself, this video is going to be way too long and full of just gibberish rambling of me in bed, but I just reminded myself this was published in 2015. It is a YA fantasy. I've seen it listed as a YA fantasy romance, so I'm going to assume there's a little something going on, but the book, I hate saying, like, it reads YA, but, like, it does, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that's not what I'm looking for. I say doing a whole video on YA fantasy, but I just don't like the, like, cliches, like, okay, my fingers are tied, tugging at my ankles, pulling me under, and that's just one of them, and I just can't get behind it. And I feel like that's what really, the cliches and the inconsistencies really throw me off with YA. And I feel like they don't need to be there. Like, YA doesn't necessarily have cliches and inconsistencies, but I feel like so often it does that I kind of don't want to read the YA that ends up being worth it and, like, in my opinion, better. Because I do think there's YA out there that's phenomenal and great, and I'm trashing this book and I'm 8 pages in. I'm not trying to. But also, guilt pricks at me, but I shove it away. Just throwing that out there. For what feels like the 100th time, my fear has ensnared me. I run my gaze lazily down her body. Okay, 1, creepy, 2, cliche. Okay, this isn't like really a spoiler because it's like chapter 2, so it's like pretty early on, and I'm not going to really give you any details, but if you don't want any spoilers, like, skip ahead 30 seconds or whatever. But, like, there's basically a scene where this guy, like, is best friends with this girl, and he just thinks of her as a friend, but he's trying to distract her from something, so he, like, looks at her, like, down her body, and he's like, I'm waiting for her to, like, rip into me about, like, leering at her, and I'm like, what the fudge? You stare at her body to make her think you're interested, but that's not the intention. You just want her to get mad at you for leering creepily at her body. What? Does that make sense to anyone? Okay, there is so much, like, body focus in this book already. Like it just reads like that YA novel where they're like, you're hot, and you're like, ew. Like, I just feel like I like fantasy worlds where they aren't as like, if you're a soldier set out to kill, you're just gonna look at her and be like, aren't you a pretty one? As you look her up and down. Ew, are they all creepy? Are they all creepy perverts? Someone tell me. I don't like it. Okay, it's like 1 in the morning. I need to go to bed. I'm probably gonna read some more once I turn my lights out. flashlight. But I wanted to add that there were quite a few lines I did enjoy, and the plot seems really fast-paced, which I enjoy. So I don't want it to seem like I'm just hating on the book to hate on the book, because that's not it at all. I actually really want to love this book, and I'm just in a picky mood because I don't like cliches, and yeah, I'm this picky with my own writing too. It's not like I'm like, you should write like me. No. I also think my writing, I do the same thing with it. I'm like, well, what have I done? This is not good. But yeah, so like, really, it's just the fact one day I want to be an editor, and I feel like I have editor brain instead of just reading for pleasure brain. So, yeah, I'm hiding. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to clarify that because I don't want it to seem like I'm hating on this book just for fun. I'm not. I don't. I wish I loved every book I read, honestly. So yeah, I will probably be back tomorrow. Oh, should I do that weird TikTok hand thing? Hold on. Okay, I also just wanted to add before I forget that sometimes these characters make the dumbest assumptions. Like, I'm trying to say stuff without giving spoilers, but basically, like, if someone was looking for people and then some people came up, you would think they would think, maybe these are the people I'm looking for. But no, they're like, nah, they're not. It's like, oh my gosh, they are. And it's like, why wouldn't you think that that's a possibility? Or if you're like planning something and someone mentions it and like, you know, there's no way they could know, why would you assume they know? Why wouldn't you just assume they're guessing? Hey, I think I remembered. I don't know. It's been a few days, and I've been reading Harry Potter. I haven't been feeling the best. Oh my gosh, my mascara has bled. I'm just having some stomach issues. Not COVID related, so that's at least good. But I picked up the book and I've been reading again, and I've actually enjoyed quite a few parts of it. Sorry, I do sound really like ooh. But anyway, I did enjoy quite a few parts of it. Sometimes I think it is a bit heavy-handed. Like, we get it, Elias, you want to escape, and they're gonna hate you. You know? Like, I'm just like, okay. But I also am just like, I get it, like, whatever. I don't know. But then there's also, like, this, like, element of sexism that I'm not really a fan of. Like, he just was like, did you just turn all girly on me? And I'm like, she would kick your ass. Like, I don't get why fantasy worlds have to be sexist, especially if there's a woman in charge. Like, I don't get it. Why would you choose that? But, oh my gosh. But there are also quite a few parts I do like. I like the fast-paced nature. And I'm interested where it will go. Oh. Yeah. That's how I feel. Oh gosh. This is a terrible angle, but yeah, I just wanted to update you, and yeah, I'm gonna keep reading. Okay, I'm sure my fan is loud as per usual, and I was gonna save this to the end to talk about with my overall thoughts of the book, but I'm so annoyed I have to talk about it now. The sexism and the sexualization of women in this book is absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. Now, the sexism in the book largely seems to be a product of the society, and it seems to be like the author is trying to be like, sexism is dumb. So, okay, I think sometimes it's not done as well as others, but the sexualization of women, the main character, Elias, literally starts the book by licking his friend that's a girl, up and down her body to distract her. Ew. And then they're just keeping these moments where basically, like, guys keep leering at her and looking her up and down, and it's disgusting. And then, like, sometimes he's like, yeah, that's not good. And I'm like, you did the same damn thing, bro. And now we just got to this part that I'm so annoyed by. So it's not really a spoiler. Like, it's not. If you want to skip it, you can. I'm not gonna say, I'm not gonna give any context really, but basically, a character trying to hit on these girls, and he's like, to the main character, he says, if we remind them that, like, basically, like, blah blah blah, if we talk to them, I bet we could, I don't want to spoil anything, I bet we could get 2 each, as in 2 girls each. Now, and then the main character says, now there's a thought, I actually consider this for a moment. Disgusting. And literally, he says that the girls, earlier he says the same girls that they're talking about getting 2 each of, he says that they're watching him in a disturbingly predatory way. And I'm like you're not? The sexualization of women and men is not good. It's just not. Like, you shouldn't be looking at someone like they're a piece of meat and not like as they're a person. He also implies that he's already been with a couple of these women. I don't know if that's the case or not, but like, I don't think it's cool or acceptable or a good trait in a main character that seems to be like this moral guy that we're supposed to support, to be basically talking about women as if they are just people to be slept with, as if they're just pieces of meat, as if they're not human beings with feelings and thoughts and desires. I can't stand it. It's one of my least favorite tropes in any kind of thing, is when a guy's like, I couldn't wait for you, so I slept with these people. It's in The Princess Bride in the book, and I was so disturbed when I found that. I hate it. Like, and it's never like seen as a bad thing, literally. It's just like, oh, guys being guys. No, that's not guys being fucking guys. I'm gonna have to bleep this because I'm so angry. Let me see what else I've highlighted that I marked. Let's see. Oh, he sexualizes her, a character earlier when he's describing how beautiful she is, and he's like watching her, and he imagines like sexual stuff with her. And I'm like, okay, people, whatever, like, sometimes those thoughts, one, can be intrusive, but also sometimes you do sexualize people in your mind. I think, you should, like, be like, you just don't think of her just as her body and just in a sexual way. Like, I don't think that's cool. I think, if you're attracted to someone and you also are attracted to them as a human and their personality, great. But this was so sexual that I just wasn't really here for it, especially since he knows her deeply. Also, sexism example number 1. At one point he says, the main character says, are you turning sappy and girly on me? So usually people are calling the friend of his that's a girl, she's throughout the story, she's a girl fighter, she's the only one really, and throughout the story basically there's like all these guys being jerks to her, being like, you're a woman, you can't do this, and she's like, F off. And then he just goes around and says stuff like that, where he's like, are you turning into a girl? As if that's not sexist. If these men don't stop looking at women as only sexual human beings, I can't stand it. It is disgusting. I'm trying to see if there's any other examples that I bookmarked. Oh, here's a great one that I loved. So he's talking about his armor, and he's like, if my armor was made to accentuate my body's power, then my friend, Helena, is her name Helena? Helene. Then they made Helene's to accentuate her beauty. Women are not just their beauty. Women, like, who would write that and think I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable to say. Like, that is sexist. That is sexist. And if it was written in a way that I was like, yeah, I think they know it's sexist, I'd be like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, but the main character is supposed to be this morally great guy that so far, that's what I've gotten, that he's supposed to be above all the stuff. Like, he's like, I don't, like, get with the prostitutes, and, like he says that, quotes, and, like, I believe in, like, goodness, and whatever, but then he says stuff like that, and I'm like, so, your friend, who is a warrior, who is kick-ass, you're just like, accentuates her beauty because that's all that's important to you. Also, there are other examples of sexism from other characters where it seems to be an example where it's bad. Like, it's a terrible character saying something sexist. And that seems to be an example of when you're like, yeah, that's sexist, you shouldn't say that. But when the main character is saying sexist things and there's no, like, kind of, that's kind of sexist, that's what I don't like. Oh yeah, at one point he talks about this other guy looking at her, like, his eyes going down her body, and I'm like, you literally did that earlier. You can't act like that's disgusting now because you did it earlier on purpose to distract her. Like, and then when he fights with this guy about sexism and about sexual assault and stuff, he then just decides, he calls it a stupid graduation day brawl. As if he didn't just fight. Like, I am so upset about this. I haven't read anything this disgustingly sexualization of women in a hot minute. And I read Game of Thrones. Not saying that that's not sexualizing women. I just think this is worse and more obvious because in Game of Thrones, you have a lot of morally great characters. There are few, if any, characters that are, like, good, that are supposed to be portraying good. In this book, he seems like he's supposed to be portraying good, and yet he is perpetuating sexist and the sexualization of women. This ain't it. This is not it for me. Not it. I am very disappointed, and I don't know how I can recover from this, and I would stop reading it if I wasn't doing this for this YouTube channel. This is not a love story. I've noticed a lot of YA fiction has these kind of elements in it as if it's a love story. That ain't it for me. That's not what I want. I know some people, like, trust me, I love some stories that I know are problematic, and I love them anyway. And if this is one of those tropes you love, even though you know it's problematic, okay. But it ain't it. It just is not it. And I think the acknowledgement that it's problematic, if you have read this book, if you have read An Ember in the Ashes, and you disagree, you agree, there's other examples that you want to mention, please comment below. I very rarely have this problem with books I read. Honestly, I can't remember the last book I read where I was this angry, but my blood is boiling. Boiling. Okay. 11-minute rant over. So I just got back from basically like spending all day reading outside. I spent about 3 hours maybe, I don't know. Yeah, so I read a decent amount of the book. I'm getting it out. And I bookmarked whenever I really didn't like something, which is only like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. But what I didn't bookmark, and it's really important to mention, is that I am really invested in these characters. It happened around like here probably. So it took me a bit to get invested. But now I'm invested. I already checked out the second book from the library, and I will be reading it right after I finish this one, which I will be doing shortly, because I have like this many pages left, and I need to know what happens. So I will say that. Like, I've probably been a bit harsh on this book, and I don't mean to be. I'm equally as harsh on everything I read. And it's honestly kind of exhausting to constantly find problems with stuff. Like, I would love if I just absolutely adored the book and thought it was perfect, but I didn't. And, I mean, you know, someone's heart and soul was poured into this book. They spent hours and days and weeks and probably months, if not years, writing this world and creating these characters. And I mean, I think that's amazing. I would never want to say, like, that's not praiseworthy in itself. That being said, some books aren't for everyone. And I think that's important to note, and that's not a bad thing. Some classics I don't like. That does not mean they're bad pieces of art. That does not mean that just because you didn't like them, someone else liking them is bad. No, not at all. There have been plenty of things I've loved that other people hated, and I just loved. That's great. I love that. If you love this book with everything in you, I love that for you. I love that for you. I'm really invested in these characters now, so I will be continuing the story. But I did notice that the sexism trait is really carrying throughout the story, and I don't like it. I don't like it when they say, like, stop being like a girl. And they link powerlessness and emotions to being like a girl. I don't like that. At all. Just throwing that out there. But I will say, not that this really makes me happier or anything, I will say that most YA books that I've read that were published in the like 2010s, like 2015-ish is when this one was published, have this element of sexism. I'm not saying all of them do. I'm saying a lot of them do. And so I'm saying that this was a very common trend in YA literature to basically have sexism in your work, but be like, women, empowerment, and like also have the male characters that are supposed to be like morally right be extremely sexist. Like, especially in love stories. Love stories are mostly sexist that I have read, not all of them, of course, and it was one of the reasons I stopped reading romance. And this one is more romantic, which coincidentally means it's a little bit more sexist. Do I think you have to have sexism to have a good romance? No. Do I think you have to have the sexualization of women as property and as non-humans, like not focusing on their human traits, but just on their body? No. But I do want to say that this book is not alone in that connection, and I don't want to say that it is because that's unfair. That being said, I still don't like the connection at all. Gosh, stop insulting people because they're a girl. I'm trying to see why. Oh, there was this part where they were just like really dismissive of this one girl who's like totally kick ass. Get that part out. But anyway, like she's totally cool, like wicked cool, and they're just like, and I can't say all the details without spoiling stuff, so I won't. But let's just say that when sexism exists in a book, and the book is trying to be like, this is wrong, I'm not saying they have to be like, yo, this is wrong, but like, I kind of feel like this book was just like, this is good. Not like this is neutral. Like sometimes there's sexism in the books like, this is bad. This sexism is linked to bad characters. And then other times, the morally good characters say really sexist stuff, and it's like, that time it's good. And it's like, no. That being said, the next book I'm excited for because I'm hoping as this author published more and really got her voice the way she wanted it and maybe stopped doing some of the trends in YA fiction at the time, of romance at the time, of making it very sexist and very demeaning to women. I'm hoping that the next book will be even better about that and that I'll just fall more and more in love. Oh, I also wanted to add, this book did a lot better at world building, in my opinion, than Six of Crows. Six of Crows, honestly, I have no clue about most of that world. And maybe that's because I didn't read Shadow and Bone. Is that the first book? Whatever, the first book. In the other. So there are basically two series in the same universe. One was written first, and some people say to read that one first. I just read Six of Crows, which you can do. That's not against the rules. But I do feel like I didn't get the world exactly. Like I didn't feel like I ever got a grasp on it. And in this one, I really do feel like I have a grasp of the world. I really feel like I can see the world in this place and where they're living. Like, I see all that. So I just want to say that's also really great about it. I'm about to get back to reading because I need to know what happens. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.